Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to BGCQ. We are getting into the quarterfinals. My name is Travesty. Do I call you RMC or what am I calling you here, RMC? You got a different look today.
Like RMO, Random Million Oscar Award here. I mean, I don't know. It felt just like tonight would be appropriate. We're in the playoffs here. It felt like a bit of a, we're getting to the fancy part of things, and we're gonna see our top four crowned tonight.
Absolutely. And you know what? We talking about the fancy things. We had to bring on a special fancy guest. We got Mike Young himself. How are you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for inviting me back, and I'm excited to watch some competitive League of Legends.
Absolutely, man. It's looking exciting, and we got a fun day for ourselves here. And real quick, we gotta take a moment because as my RMO or RMC has said here, these teams had quite the journey to get here. So we want to take a moment to real quick kind of reflect on the journey that these teams have taken to be able to get to this moment in time where they're able to get into the quarterfinals. So we're going to take a moment to look at these groups that they had to fight tooth and nail from, starting with Group A and Group B. As you can see, we can see that these teams did not have an easy journey here.
No, for sure not. And it's the matchup we have as well. 100 Thieves next up against Team Pending here. And the interesting thing is that 100 Thieves next actually only played 3 games. They got the bye against Noorg as well. So we don't have a ton of data on 100 Thieves next coming to quarterfinals here. And on the other side, Team Pending also got a bye against Jake's Kitten. So, they've had an interesting path here, though. Theirs has been a bit tougher, especially last night when they had to go up against Tempest Gaming.
I didn't
One
have
thing I
a.
want to point out is Team Pending's icon. One of the most funniest icons out of all the teams.
Now, Mike Young, I don't know if you've known this, but that smiley face tends to haunt people. From what I've seen, every time I go onto the analyst desk, people are like, "Oh no, that smiley face! I see it at night." Is something that's troublesome for some people because this team can be very, very unpredictable here for our first matchup. Also, to take a moment to look and see what we got our Group C and Group D, see what their journey was. And you can see that here Cincinnati Fear and AOE were the teams that got out of Group C. And Group D, we got EGP and Maryville that were able to get out.
Yeah, and the AGT Maryville matchup will be our second matchup this evening as well. But these groups, I think, almost had spicier matchups. There was a lot of close games coming through. I'm thinking to last night's AGT versus CLG Faith game. That turned out to be a lot closer than expected, though other matches, like the EGP Maryville one, turned out to be a little less close than we had expected here. So definitely spicy groups from Group C and D, possibly more so than Groups A and B.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how Maryville performs later today. They've always been a very structured team, and I really like seeing how that plays.
Yeah, and look, there's been some structure. We've seen the groundwork that had to get laid for these teams to get here. But now let's look at how the playoff bracket itself has unfolded. We get to see it completed here. And you can see these matchups are spicy here. RMC, there's some fun ones here.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, all these kind of stuff have playoff implications. Our top 10 teams have pretty much been locked in. So the Proving Grounds qualified teams have locked in. But we still haven't locked in which 4 need to play against Academy teams in the play-ins here. And so all these matches have playoff implications or play-in implications here. AOE, Cincinnati, Fear, 100 Thieves, Knicks, they've punched their ticket. But for the other 5 teams, they're not guaranteed yet, and they're still, battling it out. They need to win in order to improve their chances of making sure they don't have to face an Academy team in play-ins.
It could be a rough road ahead if you go into that. And to take a moment to look at what our matchups on the day are. They're going on throughout the day. You got the Academy channel that is going to be showcasing AOE versus EGP, and then later on, Fear taking on Taco Gaming. While over here on the Path to LCS channel, we're starting off with 100 Thieves Nets taking on that smiley face team Pending, while later on, we got Maryville taking on AOE Ginger Tournament. It's looking like a fun day of action. Mike Young, do you got any matchups specifically you're really looking forward to personally yourself?
I'm looking forward to seeing how Sniper plays because top lane matchups are always really fun to watch. They're really skill intensive. And then also the jungle matchup, I know both the junglers pretty well from solo queue. So I want to see how the jungle matchup goes and what champions they're looking to draft. Either defensive with like Sunfire being super broken right now, or carry style because of their solo queue nature.
Yeah, it could be very fun to watch, especially because the difference between these two teams. And I want to get right into it. I want to talk about our matchup that we're starting off with here today: 100 Thieves Nets versus Team Pending. And honestly, I'm very, very excited to see what kind of things we got to see cooked up because Team Pending is just coming off of a hard fought battle, as you were talking about RMC and 100 Thieves Nets. They've had the last 2 weeks to just prepare.
Yeah, going back to what Mike Young was talking about in terms of jungle pickups, if I'm looking at a jungler for interesting picks, I'm looking at Kitsuo here. He's had a very wide variety of champions, including his Morgana jungle, which none of us still understand at this point here. He's played that Lee Sin in J4, which we've not seen quite as much of here in the summer tournament. So if there is going to be a wild jungle pick, I'm looking at Kitsuo to do it, and for 100 Thieves next, we haven't seen them for a while. And the thing with not playing or getting a bye week in these sort of tournaments is that, one, you get more time to scout your opponents, which is great against Pending specifically. But also, do you get rusty because you haven't played for a while? Team Pending's been out there grinding their edge, with game after game. Like we said, just played yesterday. They're coming in warmed up today. 100 Thieves next, 2 weeks since we last saw them.
Yeah, most definitely. You definitely get rusty if you aren't grinding a lot. And I notice a lot of teams generally play a little bit better when they are playing back to back. It's kind of like the gauntlet run, like the historical gauntlet runs that NA teams have. They always like ramp up after playing a ton of games back after back.
And I feel like, Mike King, you have so much experience, especially talking on such a subject matter. And I wanted to get your thoughts on something very specific here. From the side of TBA, they have a very fresh player, Masu, who's came in to his very first competitive split here and has been really turning some heads as this player who had no competitive experience. From your personal experiences coming in your rookie season, going fresh into competitive and turning people's heads, how does that play into the dynamic inside of this team and for Masu?
Honestly, I love playing as a rookie player, even in like in amateur tournaments, because you get to play as aggressive as you want, and there aren't as many repercussions, and you get to just play more solo queue-esque. But of course, you have to still think about like what's best for the team. I think it's gonna be fun looking at, okay, how is he gonna channel his inner aggressiveness with his insane mechanics, and then how does he balance that with his lack of experience or lack of team play because he is a newer rookie player. And if he can find like a really good balance in both, then he'll make for a great showing.
And it's been a player that people have been hyping up quite a bit here. But on the other side of things, it's not an easy journey, right? This rookie has a lot going at him. In RMC, we have seen Lens growing quite exponentially here as of late on 100 Thieves Next.
Yeah, Lens, especially in this tournament, has looked a bit better. Back in Summer 1, there were, some sort of plays where it felt like he wasn't quite on the same board as the rest of the team here. But in Summer 2 so far, in OQs and the games against large Lens has looked much, much better. And I think part of that is just the team having more experience together. I also want to highlight his support, Sword, as well. Congratulations to him. Just yesterday, he finished Champions Queue second season, 8th place, and he took first place in solo queue on the same day as well. So, with that sort of support, I'm expecting Lens to be able to pop off a little bit more in this particular series.
That's most definitely really impressive, like hitting that high and also grinding out, scrims and also the matches to prepare for. So props to him.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's hard enough dividing life as is, and then it's just like, oh man, he's doing the solo queue. He's got all this other stuff. He is popping off and doing a great job for himself. Flipping it over towards the other side here, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the rosters and see these head-to-head matchups that are going across on our screen. The one that's very interesting to me here is one that we were talking about a little bit earlier on, and it's one that I feel like Mike Young here might be a little informed on. We got Fnatic versus Kitsuo in the jungle, and looks like a very important matchup.
Yeah, most definitely. I think Kitsu might feel pressured to play more like carry oriented because he's a very confident player. Whereas I think on the side of 100X, because they have a better reputation as a team that's done very well in tournaments and also just a really great track record and experience and high solo queue standings as well, he can kind of play more standard. The lanes will do really well, play good macro, and doesn't really need that pressure. Doesn't really feel that pressure in terms of like, okay, I have to do really well. I personally would give it to 100X just because of the entire team. But Kitsu is a great player. One of the most aggressive, confident solo queue junglers that I know.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Kitsuo as well, last night we got that interview from him, and he was saying that, for him, this particular matchup has some meaning as well. Back in summer number one, Team Pending made it all the way to the semifinals where they fell to Fear, who eventually fell to 100 Thieves Knicks, and Kitsuo feels like this was the finals that he was kind of looking forward to, which didn't happen. He gets to play 100 Thieves next year. So I do agree with you, Mike Young. I do think Kitsuo likely to play a bit more aggressively here. Look for those sort of champions that can enable that play. I'm not expecting to see those farming style junglers coming through, at least not for game one.
It looks like it could be a very spicy series on our hands. It's definitely looking like it could be very exciting, and that does beg the question, right? What is TBA as a whole going to do, right? We have in this roster, there is 3 CLO champions here from 2022. You've got this fresh rookie AD carry, and you got Tapa, who has been a consistent force in the top lane for so very long here inside the amateur scene. RMC, how are you feeling about TBA as a whole then, if you're thinking that Kitsu is going to bring out that heat?
Well, I mean, with the way Team Pending plays here, the wild card part about them has always been the picks, not their playstyle. Their playstyle revolves primarily around Robbie Bob and Masu as the big carries for this team here. And if Kitsuo is going to step up and try and be a bit more aggressive here, I'm not exactly expecting, maybe like a Bel'Veth, something that would take over a game and become the focus by itself here, but instead something like the Lee Sin that we've seen so much coming through from him, maybe the J4 as well, these early ganking junglers to carry through aggression instead, where you're looking for ganks in the mid lane, you're looking for ganks in the bot lane here, trying to accelerate Robbie Bob to his carry state as quick as possible. And for Masu, depending on what we see here, if we get to see that Draven, then you definitely want to be camping that bot lane here. If it's something like the Senna, you're more just protecting that bot side, and maybe when your bot, gets the advantage, push in, get some invades off.
Be real, I'm tapped out on Draven. So I think it has a 0% win rate right now inside of PGCQ. So who knows about that one? I'm a little scared on that behalf. But over on the other side, you got what a lot of people are considering somewhat of a raid boss, right? They won Circuit Qualifier number 1. 100 Thieves Nets is full of all sorts of players you recognize. Mike Young, how are you feeling about 100 Thieves Nets and how they're looked to win this game?
I think it's really favored for them right now as well because Kitsu wants to play these aggressive junglers, but right now, champions that are pretty disengage heavy or pretty tanky with like durability, sunfire, these items that kind of like are very annoying for assassin champions. So definitely I'm gonna have to give it to 100X, 100 next, just because of the patch, but also because they seem more prestigious as like a team, more experienced. I think it'll be fun, and I would say that there probably is going to be a fight for at least like one of the games.
Gotcha. So you're telling me that we're probably not going to see the Kitsuo Zed jungle come out here in the matchup, right?
Maybe. I mean, the only issue is like, is Poppy going to be left on the table? Poppy is like the bane to a lot of assassin junglers, so it really depends on draft. Depends on the ban phase as well.
Okay. Heard from both of my my experts here on the desk. So real quick, we're going to take a moment to look at what the casters themselves thought about today's matchups. And as you can see across the board, there's not a lot of agreement in the first series, but other than that, there's a lot of people on the same wavelength, it seems.
Yeah, this 100x wave and this fear wave here, zero doubt whatsoever. Travis, I can't blame them. Like, you heard like Mike Young said as well, right? Like 100x is just favorite. They are more prestigious. They seem to have pound for pound stronger lanes as well. And personally, when I look at 100x, what scares me the most has been their early game stats. They've got the highest gold difference at 15, most turret plates being taken pre-14, highest herald rate. This is a team that knows how to close out. In fact, they actually have the fastest game times as well. So it feels like 100 Thieves Knicks, well, they know how to win. And Team Pending, if they want to upset this year, they've got to survive the early game. And traditionally, that has not been their strength.
Yeah, it hasn't been. We have seen that Team Pending's biggest struggle has been when they are playing from behind. So, like you were just talking about, if 100 Thieves Nets gets to play to their strength, it's a very, very hard matchup. And it looks like everybody is really agreeing on that. Mike Young, if you are against 100 Thieves Nets, this is the team that has the fastest game time. What's your advice to the TBA fans out there? What do you have to be hopeful about to see how they might possibly counter 100 Thieves Net's aggression?
I think they have to go pretty aggressive in the early game picks with a lot of agency, a lot of gank potential, let Kitsu play the game with a lot of setup throughout options and ganks across the lanes. You don't really want to have like a scaling game against like really mechanically sound players. You want to make it a little bit more chaotic. You want the jungler to have a lot of control in terms of like flipping the game around with really good ganks.
Makes a lot of sense. And for my award-winning expert, what do you think 100 Thieves Nets needs to get everything going here, RMC? Do you think that they need to just play their standard game, or do they got to bring out something special today?
I don't think they need to change a thing. I mean, they won the first summer tournament, and granted, back in spring they did lose the second one in the quarterfinals. They got knocked out here, so maybe history repeats itself. But I think they just need to play standard, play their usual way. They've got strong lanes. Fnatic doesn't need to change anything up. He can already just play to the lanes like he always has been. And really, it's just about not making mistakes for the side of 100 Thieves Knicks. Don't give Team Pending an opportunity to kind of flip the game, like Maki was talking about, or inject chaos into it and potentially mess things up for themselves.
This is of the entire formula, and you just brought up an interesting point about history, and sometimes if you don't learn from it, you're doomed to repeat it. So question is 100 Thieves Nets prepared, right? Going into the quarterfinals. I'm going to start us off by, let's start to see what we're looking at in terms of our predictions and what we're feeling. Mike Young, how are you feeling in today's series?
100x 2-1. I'm going to give one game to TBA because I feel like they might come out with a lot of confidence, with Kitsuyu being very confident on playing them in his last interview. And I just feel like there might be some creative drafts that might throw 100x off.
Yeah. RMC, what do you got for me? Anything different? You on the 100 Thieves hype train as well?
Yes, I am, Travi. You said that, history repeats itself, but I think the full quote is those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I believe 100x would have learned from last time. If there's anything we know about 100x, this is a team that doesn't lose twice in a row. So I'm sure they're very aware of this, and I'm sure they've put in the time, the prep, to make sure that they can take this one clean.
Yeah, and for me, this actually kind of pained me a little bit. I like cheering for TBA. I'm a big Masu stan. I love to see them play, but I'm also in the camp of 100 Thieves. I feel like when I look at 100 Thieves, this is a team that they get those early leads, like we've been talking about, right? Like they get those early leads, and TBA has just not been favored when it comes down to that. So I'll be happy to be wrong, but for today, I'm going to try my best to be right, and that's where I think 100 Thieves is sitting at. And I'm curious, do you guys see this being a back and forth affair then? Mike Young, I want to touch on it. You said one game, and I really want to touch on that. How do you think that they get that one game?
I think it's going to be off of early game. I think it's going to be off of maybe getting caught out for a few ganks, having a good solid draft from TBA side, and just leading through with the snowball.
Okay. Do you have a specific champion in mind here? Are we going to see the Karthus hijinks come out to play, or do you think it's just going to be them playing something weird?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Karthus. I'm hoping to see like some sort of ganking jungler. Maybe if Poppy's like off the table, then Lee Sin might be fun to watch. I know he has a pretty good Lee Sin. They're probably gonna ban his Rengar, so those are my hopes. Wukong right now is a pretty popular proactive pick as well, so maybe that's gonna come out as well. Maybe Jarvan, etc.
Yeah, I think if we do see a Poppy for Team Pending, they're likely to give it to Topo in that top lane instead, even though I do agree. I'm personally a big fan of Poppy jungle, but Team Pending, Topo, man, that man's immovable on tanks.
Signature champion, right? Like that is a thing that we get to see a lot in amateur. When we get to see those signature picks come out, a lot more people get to have those comfortable champions that slide through, right? We were all talking about Kitsuo is never going to get Rengar inside of a series from now on, right? Like ever since CeeLo, it's been banned.
Yeah, and you know what? Fair enough. And you know what? Mike Young has kind of swayed me a little bit here. I do think if there is a chance for, you know, a TBA win, I do agree. I think it's early game, and I think it's going to be game 1 if it does happen, because I think that's the game where maybe 100X is a little bit rusty coming off their break here. You know, they haven't warmed up enough. TBA is completely ready to roll, and maybe they cheese them with something. Because if there is a team which pulls off cheese well, there are 2 teams that do it well: AGT and TBA. But TBA is one of them, so maybe they can whip up, you know, something a little bit crazy here, catch everybody off guard.
I like it. The strategy of like, all right, they're gonna come in here. They got a 2-week break. They're kind of like, all right, yeah, we're feeling good. We had a vacation. We chilled. We got a couple practice here and there. Everything was going great. And then TBA comes in, warmed up with one hell of a haymaker, and they're just sitting there like, whoa. I love to hear it. But that is going to be it here for us on the desk. We are going to go ahead and send it to our absolutely beautiful casters. We got the lyrical stylings of Deseret and the man with, was it 120 possibilities in store for us, Rude Dude. So, gentlemen, take it on away.
Thank you, Travi. And 128, I keep track of my co-caster, no worries there. Looking good, by the way, RMC. So Stall and Fault seems to be the name of the game. Deserix here, Rude Dude right over there, and welcome to the cast. And just now, Rude, I want to get right into this because we were framing this as the finals that never happened, right? Now, their pathways are intertwining once more, and we're getting to visit this matchup that Kitsuo has been wanting to do. And quite honestly, you know, I've been itching for it as well.
So have I. There's been this big expectation, and I know that Kitsuo has sort of been searching for this matchup, as you mentioned. The notion for TBA, I think for them, they beat the collegiate world. Now they need to come through and really try and best in this amateur world as well. Of course, with those 3 core members from UST who won that CLO championship just a month or so ago. And there's no doubt about it. I don't think that we would have you in remiss if you said that 100 Thieves Next are our best amateur team. They have bested everybody in the first qualifier that we had. They did the same thing in spring as well. So this matchup right here, TBA versus 100 Thieves Next, is one that we really want to be keeping our eyes on, because it could very well be an upset matchup. But I don't think that the desk did any discredit to 100 Thieves Next going 3-0 in terms of their predictions. It is an expected 100 Thieves Next win.
Yeah, 100 Thieves Next have fallen before in the past, though. You know, we saw that in spring, back in Circuit Qualifiers number 2, falling to Maryville, as was brought up on the analyst desk. They've had little slip-ups here and there. Ginger Turmeric was one that took them in the open qualifiers. So there have been some openings in the armor of 100 Thieves. They haven't been this completely invulnerable squad. And the question is, can Team Pending take advantage of that? A lot of this revolves around the early game, Rude Dude.
It does. We know that 100 Thieves Next, very, very scary in the early stages. Our best early game team of the tournament thus far. And I think that that is something that is actually a stylistically very good matchup versus TBA. They themselves have done very well when you sit back and let them, when they're a bit more scaling oriented. I think that Robbie Bob and Masu in the late game can be very terrifying to try and team fight up against. Not to say that they don't have their own aggressive merits as well, but just when I think about what those 2 players can do so well, it is those late game team fights. And I think that for 100 Thieves Next, their dominance through the early game is something that we can really start to hem in on. And I think that in particular, that top lane matchup for me is something that is going to be fairly important for TBA, because Sniper versus Topo could, I think for me, is the biggest mismatch in terms of our players, where we could see 100 Thieves Next generate that largest advantage, because 100 Thieves Next are no stranger to playing towards Sniper if it's needed, and Topo very notoriously at this point, given the weak side role.
Yeah, he's just been locked down into tanks for so long, but this is such a challenge to go into sniper. Someone who's been such a prodigy within the scene, who's been his name has been really held in high regards as we've watched him go. He's definitely someone who's destined for Academy, even destined for LCS at this trajectory that he's been going with the 100 Thieves next so far. But the question is, how can you stall out? You know, you get Topo over towards that weak side, give him a tank. What's going to happen in the other lanes, though? If TBA are able to hold that area, you're looking for Robbie Bob, you're looking for Katsuo, you're looking for those members to come online. This mid jungle duo that's worked so well in C-Lol back when we saw them last month, and of course this new addition of Masu, who's been another young player coming in, being such a force for Team Pending thus far.
Yeah, and when they tried to put this roster together as well, the way that Masu joined the team was essentially the rest of TBA looked at the solo queue ladder, tried out ADCs. Masu fit best with the team. They took him, picked him fresh from solo queue. It is the most origin story that you can find in a League of Legends amateur player. And with him now joining the team, obviously meshing very well. They've had a very good start out. They surprised everybody in the first qualifier. I think that now their expectations have been slightly higher overall. But they're coming into a very difficult matchup against the best that amateur has to offer. So the question now is, can they keep elevating that bar at which we hold them to? Can they stay accountable at that high level? And can this new addition of Masu, who came out from nowhere and surprised everybody with how successful they were going to be, can he lead the team to some semblance of success?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the mid game a little bit here, because I'm wondering what happens if Team Pending is able to stall out and get a gold lead. Even keep it even when it comes to the mid game. That is something we haven't really seen challenged when it comes to 100 Thieves next. Their average game time is somewhere at 27 minutes, so they play really fast. We haven't seen them go past that 30-minute mark too many times.
No, and that's a really scary thing, honestly, because I think, like I mentioned, it's something that ATBA are quite familiar with, but also I think that if 100 Thieves next are able to just push the foot to the floor, it's something that TBA haven't tended to deal too well with as a whole. Them playing from behind does tend to lead them down some fairly scary avenues, and ones that tend to result in defeat for TBA. So this early game style for 100 Thieves next, certainly something that, like we say, we've given them the stylistic advantage of for the most part. I do want to, though, quickly, just while we've got the chance here, talk about those implications. Travi gave me the 128 different possibilities.
128?
There are two very easy ones. Unfortunately for TBA, they've got two ways out immediately from today alone. The first one is completely unrelated to them, actually. If AoE wins their series, which is going on Academy right now, then TBA get through regardless of this result. Of course, also, if TBA win against 100 Thieves next, they make it to the top 6 of PG. So there are two ways for them today to make it through. One of them in their hands, one of them not, but they've got very easy ways to get into that top 6.
This is why we have Rude Dude here. He's searching the universe, looking for all those possibilities and picking out the right ones. We are ready for draft now, so our first game going to be underway, 100 Thieves next versus Team Pending. And the draft is something the analyst desk was saying time and time again over the course of that whole segment, that this is going to be something that's very crucial. We need to get some early game agency going for Team Pending.
They do. If they can generate some early game jungler, I think is the best way to do it. Obviously, Chukis as well can play those more aggressive style supports, but the meta itself has been deferring a little bit more into the more Enchanter style down in that bot side. I want to credit as well, maybe a little bit of homework being done by 100 Thieves next. The Senna ban away from TBA. Marsu pulled out the Senna in one of his debut games on TBA and was an absolute fiend with it. It was certainly something that I expect to see get away from them, or get banned away from them every game in a season.
Yeah. Especially considering you can take compositions that stall out pretty well if that Senna is available. Rengar also going to be banned away, as Michael and Young was saying, not going to allow that to hit the Rift this time. So far, just going after that marksman pull, taking away a little bit of the jungle, but a little bit of slow ban here. Gangplank not going to see the Rift as well.
And I think that GP, we may well see the Gnar ban in this case as well, because that's sort of been the go-to answer. Teams have taken the Gnar blind, opted into a GP secondarily, and I think that if you get rid of one, getting rid of the other tends to make sense. But we'll have to see whether or not 100 Thieves next feel pressured to. They could just B1 it and say, well, you don't have the answer to it now. That there are obviously a load of other avenues for that top lane to go. Not really too much attention drawn to that jungle, weirdly enough. Normally we see a fair few bans taken that way, but we have got the things like the Viego, like the Wukong Udyr as well, still on the board. Something that we can all attribute to success.
They're really trying to make sure that Topo is going to be safe over on this top side. You can see all those bans coming out. Fiora taken away, Gangplank taken away. This does leave Renata up, so this is going to be taken by 100 Thieves next. With no real focus towards the jungle pool, I'm looking at Katsuo right now. What jungler is Team Pending going to go for?
I think that Volibear speaks to a lot of what we've hyped up for TBA specifically. Kitsuo as well is no stranger to the things like the Lee Sin, those early game aggressive junglers, certainly a style which he's very familiar with. And I think that if jungle pool would be no surprise to see anything along those lines come out. The Kalista takeaway from the Renata, so you do take away that pairing.
Do it. Do it.
This is it. Come on, I just hyped it up. Please.
Yes,
there we go. Early game aggression, the way you beat 100 Thieves next. Go toe-to-toe with them in the early stages. Kitsuo, no stranger to the Lee Sin, and he's going to show us why right now.
Yeah, this is his most played throughout this tournament so far. Paired alongside the Kalista, which is very, very early game oriented as well. We've seen a lot of marksmen who just fight at level 1, level 2, at these early waves when they get the Kalista. Of course, 100 Thieves taking away the Renata, so you're not going to get that overpowered combo, but you do have some other things that can pair with Kalista. Amumu has been one that's been taken a lot. That's 100 Thieves next go for the Aphelios and the Gnar.
Yeah, that blind Gnar that we talked about with GP being taken off the table comes through for 100 Thieves next, was also taken by Sniper in their first series of the tournament as well. So no surprises here to see comfort for Sniper in the top lane, and it does also allow for 100 Thieves next to play a little bit more toward that bot side also. Gnar, very safe, very stable, low resource top laner to be picked up. And a Sylas in response. I want to throw out quickly that this is an opportunity to be a flex pick into the top lane. Sylas has been taking it into the Gnar in seasons gone by when Gnar was very powerful, because you don't have to train up your own Mega Gnar as the Sylas. You simply steal away the ulti. It's ready to go on demand for you for that big team fight combo. And taking just a blind mid laner here on 3 seems a little bit strange.
A little bit strange. I mean, they have a lot of faith in Katsuo with this Lee Sin that is early game oriented. Looking at the ultimates that you can take away, it's not just the Mega Gnar. Hostile Takeover is another valuable team fight ultimate that you can take away. But really just blinding Robbie Bob into Dark Wings, that is a very spicy, risky thing to go for.
It is, and it's also worth noting that Sylas is going to get a lot better use from the Renata ulti as well, because he's going to be in the midst of everybody, going to be right in the middle of that team fight, so getting a successful hostile takeover can certainly come through quite easily. Now TBA have got to decide what they want to pair up on that bot side with the Kalista. You alluded to the Amumu. We could very well see something like the Nautilus as well if they really want to hammer home some early game aggression, just as a staple for that bot lane, and try and punish this Aphelios Renata for something that they could expect to be fairly weak in these early stages. TBA on the other side, of course, taking away those junglers from 100 Thieves next. Fnatic, also no stranger to early game aggression, and taking the Ornn, taking the Udyr away certainly makes sense.
Yeah, the Ornn stock standard for Topo. Now you have a little bit of teamfight presence. You have a weak side that you can try and get to be okay over there on that top lane. It does give away where the Sylas is going to be going. It will be locked over into that mid lane. So 100 Thieves have their pick when it comes to counter picks in the solo lanes.
I think this is great for 100 Thieves next. They were always going to be operating under the assumption that the Sylas could be flexed around. That Ornn removes that flexibility, and this suggests that Chukis has got something a little spicy locked in, because they knew what they were opting into in the mid lane. They knew that this was going to be or in the bot lane, excuse me. They knew you were going against Aphelios Renata, but they've got something, a counter pick hopefully prepared we'd like to see. And the Cassio as well for Darkwings. Not his first time pulling this one out either. Taken this one blind as well in their first series of the tournament, so no stranger to the Cassio.
Okay, I was expecting a little something a little bit more spicy, Rude. I'm kind of let down by this Tahm Kench being the last thing that we're going to see out of Team Pending, locking that in for the bot lane.
Yeah, you know, it's more Korma on the scale of any curry that we're used to, not quite the Vindaloo that would be, you know, quite up there with our expectations, but they gave us the Lee Sin on 2. Can't be too disappointed overall by the draft from TBA in terms of those levels. But the Tahm Kench here does provide that element of safety for TBA, and particularly for Marsu, who they are really looking to be their carry this game. I really want to illustrate that. This is a low damage composition from TBA. They've got Tahm Kench and Ornn in the top and support role. Granted, we don't expect a lot of damage from those roles necessarily, but Lee Sin, Sylas, very good at finding picks, very strong in a 2v2, 2v1 situation. The second we get into those larger broad scale team fights, they're really going to struggle to get a lot of damage down. And Kalista as well, a champion that in those late game team fights, when we're trying to compare against Aphelios, simply doesn't have an answer. It's not something that they're going to be able to deal with. So for 100 Thieves next, sit back, scale up, and try and take their game should be the plan. For TBA, they are pressured by the clock.
Yeah.
They need to try and find success in the early stages, otherwise they're simply going to get out team fought later on.
Yeah. They are very pressured to find that success. Lee Sin, he does fall off in the late game. That was kind of the curse of Lee Sin. You just become that kicking machine where you're using the utility of the Dragon's Rage to find those engages. For Kalista, it is a sin if you do not leave that lane with a gold lead. It is going to be completely failed on that aspect. So TBA, we need early game presence. We need early game agency. They do have the tools to make it happen, but will it click against 100 Thieves?
And this is where we're expecting the stylistic mismatch as well, I think, for these teams to come on through. Remember, we mentioned the Sniper versus Topo in this top lane. We're expecting it to be a fairly Sniper-focused matchup regardless, but he's got the Gnar versus the Ornn in the top lane. That's a very safe, very easy matchup for Sniper to try and bully, to generate those leads. This feels like one of those games where even if Team Pending get a strong lead from that bot side, there's always going to be this behemoth from the top lane that comes down if it's not checked by TBA. They've got a lot of things to do through these early stages, and we have to sort of see if they can do it. It's a difficult task for them in this game number one.
I want to know, Root, dude. You have a foldy sheet for all standings right now. What about for the lanes? What about if Topo loses his lane, Robbie Bob wins his lane, Masu wins the lane? What goes on over there? I need to know every single universe, Rude dude.
Okay, so we're going into the, we've gone past 128, we're going up to 2048 styles of different results now. Intricate top lane matchups. If Sniper wins, that tends to mean 100 Thieves next win, and then if 100 Thieves next win, it means that TBA are then relying on the result from the other half of the bracket that's going on right now as well. So it needs to be quite a significant advantage given by this TBA bot side if they want to try and take this game. But of course, we have to remember, this is a best of 3. If all goes wrong in game number 1, it's not all doom and gloom.
You do have another universe to explore those possibilities, but I like how you just put that right there over on that top side. If Sniper wins, 100 Thieves next win. That's how much presence this young prodigy has had since he's gotten into the scene.
Exactly, and the beauty of Gnar right now, when the reason he's really popped back into priority, it feels like, is the change that happened to Triforce. It got a little bit of a buff and given over a lot more dueling power as well. Gnar can go for a very split push oriented build if you fancy it. You can go into things like this and Ornn with quite a semblance of success. I've seen things like Wit's End, Black Cleaver, that go into the side lane and just 1v1 very well whilst being just innately tanky through the mid game. Now this ward is spotted out. Kitsuo, he's not going to get this opportunity to gank onto Darkwings without, of course, a response.
Oh, able to land. Now Robbie Bob going the right way is going to be Darkwings. He will have the support of his jungler coming around the corner. A flash at a good time. Now the Pillar counterattack coming out for 100 Thieves next. Pillar successful, gets the flash out of Kitsuo. Now looking to go on to Robbie Bob. That red buff taken away. Jumping right back in is Robbie Bob. Looking to turn this one around. And they will! Team Pending. Robbie Bob and Kitsuo in a bad place now for Kitsuo. He's got to run far, far away to try and get back to home. Fnatic, one more bite should end it, but a nice outplay from Team Pending, 1-for-1 at the net.
Overall, it's a trade of mid prio for jungle prio. 100 Thieves next are going to have Fnatic very accelerated ahead of Kitsuo, who's not going to have double buffs for the remainder of this early game. But in that mid lane, Robbie Bob gets a significant advantage over Darkwings, who doesn't have teleport, Burned Ghost and Flash, and doesn't get to go back to the lane using the TP. It's something that Robbie Bob will be able to do. He obviously gets that assist, the experience lead that's going to come from this. This is an expenditure by TBA. They get the gold on the mid lane, on the mid lane versus gold on a jungler for 100 Thieves next. This is how it all started off. Obviously, Darkwings knew that Kitsuo was in this brush, trying to bait a little bit for Fnatic. But this is, I think, a little bit what we were talking about, Destrix, through the draft, that Sylas Lee Sin, very good at early game skirmishes, and Robbie Bob respects this. Darkwings not the highest on the mana, goes in and sets up for Kitsuo to make his way in. A little bit of misspacing by 100 Thieves, not able to block the resonating strike from Kitsuo, allows that first initial kill to come through. And it is the trade, 1-for-1 jungler for mid laner. Now we get to see who comes out on top with that trade.
You have to give a lot of credit to Darkwings in the back end of that, even in the early end of that, because he didn't burn his flash when Robbie Bob did the engage. He waited until the Sonic Wave. That bought enough time for Fnatic to get over there and make that a 1-for-1, so great patience coming out of Darkwings.
That's something that we like to see as well. He, like we mentioned, he knew that he was in that brush and burning the ghost, recognizing this is the minimum cooldown that I need to expend at this timing to make sure that I can survive. Certainly shows that with Dark Wings and all of the academy presence as well, his experience that he's had up there. We get to see Kitsuo now on a bit of a journey.
Now looking to come in. Flash going to be burned out of Fnatic. So Kitsuo and Robbie Bob, jungle mid duo, looking for some very spicy invades right now. Tracking where Fnatic's going. Going to send him on a recall.
So far, so good for Team Pending. I'm really happy with the way that they're playing out this game. It's not yet yielded the fruit that they'd have liked. Would have maybe liked to have got a kill there, for example, or found a nice advantage in that gold lead. So far, it's being dead even. Want to reiterate to everybody, if this gold lead is dead even, come 15-20 minutes, 100 Thieves next to winning. This composition for TBA does not outscale, does not teamfight as well as the 100 Thieves next squad. They're the ones pressured by time, pressured by the clock to try and get an advantage.
Now, how are they going to press that advantage right now? Masu, Chucky's taking a reset. Chucky's going to go towards the mid lane. You have the pathing coming out for Kitsuo going towards this bottom side right now. Dragon is available. It does look like the positioning for 100 Thieves next is headed into that direction to get priority. Sword setting up in the mid lane, however, and Kitsuo looking to meet him.
Oh, they're going to probably go for a counter gank here. It looks like Kitsuo setting up to try and 2v1, but it could be a 3v3.
Ooh, Robbie Bob hops onto a minion. Chucky's coming from the flank now to try and help out the rest of Team Pending. Just going to go to a net neutral. No one willing to continue on the 3v3.
Waving the bot side then, in this case, favourable for Masu as it's pushing in. It's the thing that you have to look at, right? If everything's even in the mid lane, where is the advantage being drawn for either side? Masu shoves it all the way back into Lens, and overall nothing too scary on either side. No commitment by TBA. They're the ones who have got the big engage buttons in this early stage, things like the Abyssal Dive from Chukies, the Sonic Wave, and potentially into Resonating Strike for Kitsuo, Abscond Abduct for Robbie Bob. If any of those end up going forward, that's when you know the commit has happened. They don't opt into it for the time being, and it just does just allow for a slightly stagnant phase, which once again is going to be heavily favouring our 100 Thieves next squad. As they've got a good freeze down in this bot side. Kalista, you said, has to generate a gold lead through the early stages, and leaving the lane without one is a bit of a sin. So far, they may have forgotten to go to church.
Good way to loop that one around, Root Dude. But yeah, Masu, he's not getting the leads down there. And a lot of that you have to give to the Aphelios-Renata combination. Aphelios has always worked so well with someone who can provide a level of pill. You know, Braum was that big pick that was paired with Aphelios so many times. The Renata being able to steal that away, the handshake is a form of pill, so is hostile takeover, so it still plays in that same type of category, just much more offensively.
And it's scary as well, how good Aphelios' lane is for how well he scales up into the late game. And we do see that Kitsuo is at least spotted out now on this ward. Chukies goes for the Fog of War Abyssal Dive, but they're well aware.
They are on top of Kitsuo's pathing. Every time Kitsuo shows up to a lane, there is a ward spotting him out. He's been struggling to get these early Lee Sin ganks going ever since he's gotten that one in the mid lane. And speaking of, Robbie Bob, wrong place to be, has to walk out the long way from the miasma.
Potential for a dive to come through, even without Fnatic. Darkwing certainly handing Silas the rough end of the Cassiopeia right now. Drake taken on one side by TBA. Looks like 100 Thieves next, with that successful trade in the mid lane, will be able to start up this Herald. Also worth noting that Sniper's just gone back, so he is at the apex of this Nars strength, spending all of his gold. And on the bot side, TBA, they're just going to trade away for a red buff. It's something that Fnatic stole away on the top side as well while that Drake was going down, so nothing gained on either side. It is that classic trade of Herald for Drake, and even on the camp trade overall.
If you're Kitsuo, what do you think is the better pathing for this one? Do you think you go for the match pathing and try and catch out wherever Fnatic is, try and contest them on those neutral objectives? Or do you think mismatched is the way to go for the counter jungles to him not have an impact in the ganks that Kitsuo is going for?
I'd love to see them try and throw down, try and match the pathing and take those fights around the objectives. Like we say, I think that the early game is where TBA are going to be thriving. It's where their skirmishes go well. If they can't find those early game skirmishes around those objectives, generating them through the lanes has proven very difficult for Kitsuo because he's been spotted, because he's been tracked at every given turn. Fnatic so far has done a very good job at whether it's him making sure that his laners know where the Lee Sin is, or whether it's a team-wide hive mind consciousness that, okay, Kitsuo's going to be in the bot side for the next couple minutes. You know, you guys, Lens, Sword, play a little bit safer. They've all done a very good job at doing their role and making sure that Kitsuo doesn't have that early game lead that he wants, which is why I would have liked to see set up around objectives, because they can be a bit more forethought and teams are more willing to contest for.
Yeah, but it's the other way around. Fnatic does Rift Herald while Kitsuo does Dragon, not going for the fights, and it's playing towards 100 Thieves' hand as they have a 1.3k gold lead. A lot of this so heavily out farming. You see it in the top lane, Sniper doing that to Topo, even in the bottom lane, which I think is catastrophic for Team Pending.
Sorry about that, everybody. I am back. Had a couple mic issues right there, but we draw some great points there, Deserux, that the issue for TBA was that down in this bot side, they're not ahead. And you said right there that Aphelios being even is catastrophic. We get to see a little bit of why potentially as the game goes later with Aphelios' scaling. But he does do so well through the early stages of the game because of his range with the Sniper in the early game. And this Renata as well, really helping out bully the Tahm Kench.
Gonna be afraid for some of these neutral fights as we're getting closer to when they're gonna happen. But Kitsuo now looking into the mid lane, has the Petrifying Gaze. Fnatic kind of fishing around here. Dragon's Rage goes out, kicks Darkwings away, who returns the Petrifying Gaze onto Robbie Bob. Now Robbie Bob low, burns Flash. 200 health remains, tries to go around, but look at Kitsuo go to the grave because Fnatic clubs him right in the face. Robbie Bob will be able to get underneath his tower, but my word, Fnatic on top of Kitsuo, always thwarting his plays.
Minuscule health bars remaining for the mid laners in this exchange. And it is Kitsuo who falls now. Marsu not quite able to find the 1v1. Looks like he was going to try and go for it. Len's not with the best gun setup, it is worth mentioning, but outranging the Callista a little bit. It is a kill traded back. Once again, it's not even a trade, excuse me. It's TBA losing out on their jungler. Kitsuo not quite finding the successes of this Lee Sin through the early stages, and Darkwing's continuing to really find some successes through this mid lane, able to sustain the early game Lee Sin damage. That Conqueror really doing work in that 2v2 and helps them come out with a 1-for-0.
And Fnatic is really facilitating this early game for 100 Thieves next. He's always had that role within this roster, but this is an early game that Team Pending are looking to win, are looking to play hard to, and Fnatic has just put a hard stop to that and Kitsuo.
And it feels like the window is very quickly closing here. I'd give them maybe another 2-3 minutes before this game gets just not necessarily beyond reproach, but before it gets incredibly difficult. The second that those item disparities really start to stack up, and unfortunately they're kind of already there. Looks like those resets are needing to come through by TBA before they can complete those mythic items. The Gore Drinker here for Kitsuo, a big boost to his early game. But we look at the top side, 400 Thieves next, that area where we were expecting potential shenanigans to be afoot. Trinity Force completed for Sniper. He's got this Herald that's giving him 4 extra, or giving him a total of 2 plates. Used his E.
Oh, and Robbie Bob doesn't have Flash. Petrifying Gaze, easy gank into the mid lane, and 100 Thieves next. This is where things are just completely falling apart for Team Pending.
Now they can transition this into the Dragon as well. Kitsuo, without Q, goes for the play.
Oh, a beautiful kick coming out from Kitsuo, going on to Darkwings. Hostile takeover does a lot of work. Darkwings still alive. Will he be able to be bailed out? Darkwings falls, can't get the assist in time. A vicious play coming out from Kitsuo, but it feels like it's coming in far too late. Now Sniper looking at this top side, no turret to defend Topo, and with only 60 health remaining, well, one more boomerang, a couple more autos, he's just going to stall this out a little bit longer. Actually, Topo, what's going on here? Oh, there he goes, there he goes. He almost got the sneaky one.
Oh, we did get to see the power of the Ocean Drake right there, though. Gave a lot more credence to Topo living. Marsu's just going to die under this bot lane turret as well. Sword tanking up that turret quite nicely, and 100 Thieves next now really starting to put their foot to the floor. They are starting to run away with this game already. That 5,500 gold lead, they're going to be able to take this bot lane turret with the red-white combo on Lens. Nothing really. Well, I say that. I thought there'd be nothing that Chookies could do about it. Turns out, merely his presence was going to be enough. But 100 Thieves next, they're going to extend the laning phase, try and keep that advantage generated, because we look at those items once again. Marsu not quite able to finish the Immortal Shield, but where Gale Force tier 2 boots and an extra longsword for Lens, he's going to be able to bully around this Callista for the time being.
It's taking a look at that mid play once again. I mean, Fnatic knew it. There's no flash available. This is so easy, so stock standard to go for, and the punish is beautiful because Cassiopeia's Miasma makes it so hard to get away. You can't use them as mobility spells. Big thing here was the follow-up that came up from Kitsuo. It was a nice play.
It was a good attempt under the turret. Unfortunately, it was just that wallet check. Not quite the damage.
Yep.
And it's one of those situations where you get the kill before you've been sent down to the bailout zone, and it's a little bit awkward. If you'd have just held one Twin Fang, for example, he would have been bailed out and would have been fine. Unfortunately, he didn't quite have the timing right on it, and it can be a little difficult. And Marsu, oh no. Oh,
this is General Sniper doing General Sniper things. There's nothing to really hype up there. It's another day in the office.
Do you remember when I said at some point this behemoth from the top lane is going to come down? We've reached the time. It's here.
General Sniper has arrived. What a rough lane that Masu had to go through. You know, he is, more of a rookie player when it comes to this. Going against Lens. Lens is someone who spent some time in the TCL, has a lot of experience, and it's showing that a little bit of an experience disparity as Lens was able to get the better of that bottom lane and now has the freedom to scale up into that late game Aphelios beast.
Another turret taken for Sniper down on the bot side. It's weird, really, isn't it? Sniper has been given very minimal jungle attention, but somehow has gotten all of the turrets for 100 Thieves Next thus far this game. It's something that 100 Thieves Next do really well, where they give resources in very different ways to what we'll see from other teams do. If they want to give resources to an ADC, they'll focus all the turrets, all the plates into them, but 100 Thieves Next, as you can see from the gold lead on the side right there, Sniper is 2k ahead of anybody in the game, and 2.5k ahead of anybody on TBA.
It is done. Let's roll next on this one. It's such an early game composition. That's why it hurts so much. Like, it's not about having faith in the late game for TBA. It's just their draft is not going to allow them to have late game.
You're quite right. And, we can re-illustrate those issues. Remember, the late game for a Silas and for a Lee Sin, so very dependent on finding people caught in extenuating circumstances, let's say, in positions that they're maybe not supposed to be. And 100 Thieves Next, not ones for misstepping through the mid-game, through the late game, which we honestly so frequently see them get to, since they dominate so well through the early stages. You can see just this tentativeness through the mid-game right now. There's nothing really to fight for, nothing to play for. They're not going to overstep. Make sure that if TBA want this push in the mid lane for a wave, they're more than welcome to get it, because guess what? We've set up for vision in the top side. There's a lot of control around that one right now, that top side jungle. A little bit like a Christmas tree for 100 Thieves Next. Any plays attempted to be made to ward what would have been Dark Queens in that top lane, not going to be allowed. And now they've set all that vision up, they're going to transition Sniper back into that top lane, and he's got the support needed from his team.
The setup now coming out for Team Pending, as they'll be the first one to get the upper end of this dragon area to try and get control, try and get priority with that vision there. Thing is, this is tough right now. The gold lead is so strong out of 100 Thieves Next. We're 17 minutes into this, which is a big deal for Team Pending to be 5k behind. There's a big question if they can take any fights anymore. I feel like you still have to, just because of the nature of this composition. It's not going to get any better from here.
And I think
windows are closing, as you said.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Chookies. There we go.
Nailed out.
Little bit of a ping pong ball right there. The handshake pulls him one way, Fate's Call pulls him another. Now in the top lane, Sniper getting his rest on by Kitsuo. But look at the damage Sniper is bringing. He has been so fed so far. Sidesteps will not get knocked up. Masu trying to cash in right here, but Lens has something to say about that one, as he will gun down top. Oh, he will gun down Masu. 100 Thieves Next will not fall.
Oh, it's beautiful. Sniper outplaying in the top lane. Knows that this Lee Sin doesn't have the damage to deal with the Gnar. 2 items already completed. The Kenpunk Chainsword means that Kitsuo's Gore Drinker, Kitsuo's Conqueror do nothing to help him in that 2v1. They've got the Herald now as well, and they're going to look to punish TBA for this misstep. Team Pending went for an effort on that top side. And Destrix, I was just about to say, I think this game's going to be over fairly quickly because of what you just said. TBA, they need to look for plays. They're never going to look favourable at this point, and the overwhelming odds have 100 Thieves Next coming out on top of it. What do we see from them? We see TBA go for a play in the top side. They try and punish onto Sniper. It's not allowed to happen. And they go further and further behind 100 Thieves Next now with such a lead.
Such a lead indeed, Rude Dude. This bodes so well for 100 Thieves Next, looking into the future for them. You know, this is going to be one of our last weeks in the circuit qualifiers. Next week we have our finals, and then right into Proving Grounds in the exact same week. Of course, 100 Thieves will have a little extra time thanks to the Gulag. They're not going to be a part of it. Likely to be our first seed. I'm pretty sure there's not much that can really change that. They are locked in for that. They need to work on different aspects of the game coming into Proving Grounds when they start facing off against Academy teams. And we always see them doing well with these early game compositions, right? Stuff like Callista Renata. Now seeing the Aphelios, now seeing these scaling picks, and still doing well, and still finding outplays like this, where Team Pending get the engage of a lifetime, but 100 Thieves Next still so far ahead. This looks so great for them going forward. Another kill picked up by 100 Thieves Next. They will clean up Robbie Bob. They will look to clean up Chookies. They're looking to clean up this game number one without much resistance coming through. Masu flashing over the wall to give Lens one more kill.
Yeah, you're not getting away, unfortunately. Nor is Chookies on this top side. I thought that he'd be able to escape, but one final chomp. It's looking very bad for TBA. Unfortunately, chalking up potentially game 2 on the cards for their improvement. Lens able. Okay, there was a world where that stole it, and that would have been hilarious. It didn't happen. But now they've got the Baron as well.
Topo's highlight reel of a lifetime.
Oh, yeah, true.
11k deficit steals Baron.
I want to give quick credit to Topo as well here. The notion of Trundle into Ornn, of course, if you know what Trundle does, the ultimate, of course, steals away resistances. Now, if Topo, being that main tank, simply does not build resistances, how does he get picked? It's not important.
The hostile takeover, man. The hostile takeover is so good in these choke points, Rude.
It was honestly devastating. I was looking at this the entire time thinking, Darkwing's triple, Darkwing's triple, Darkwing's triple, and there was always just something extra that TBA had to delay it by a little amount. Like here, for example, part 1, the abscond gets him out to safety. Chuki's able to abyssal dive over the wall. If I'm 100 Thieves Next there, I was thinking, okay, well, let's just go Baron, right? Like we've got this objective, but no. They want all the blood physically capably possible. They're going to take everything open to them, and with good right as well. They have earned their place in this game. As TBA are looking for something a little bit spicy down on that bot side. 3-man pillar could well prevent anything happening, and it is just 100 Thieves Next, really. It feels like taking their victory march.
Can you blame them? Can you blame them? There's really not much Team Pending can do. Trying to stack into 5 onto General Sniper, moving as a whole unit towards that mid lane. General Sniper is still a huge threat. You know, has his Trinity Force, has his Black Cleaver. He's going very offensively with this build. Once he's able to hop in and get that Mega Gnar ultimate, you know, Robbie Bob's not going to have the greatest chance here. It's a force coming out for Team Pending, but unable to get in. Robbie Bob will not find it, and he's unable to get any closer with that Mega Gnar ultimate. Will use the Everfrost, but one has already fallen. Chookies to the grave. Sniper breaking the mid lane. General Sniper, Darkwing's putting out the Petrifying Gaze. Now the ultimate coming out. Robbie Bob will get it, but it's still not enough. Going golden. Lens will get the kill and be bailed right on out of Mega Gnar ultimate to slam the final member of Team Pending into the wall. And the question was, is there going to be rust for 100 Thieves for 2 weeks without play? It is an emphatic no coming out for 100 Thieves Next as they show up, and it is another day.
Business as usual for 100 Thieves Next in game number 1. The job is not done. They have still got a second game to win in this best of 3 series, but they look very well poised to take it. Starting out exactly where they finished off in their previous series, taking this very convincing win over TBA. Team Pending never really held a candle to anything that 100 Thieves Next were putting down. They had that early skirmish in the mid lane, which had its merits, but after that, it was all doom and gloom.
I want to point out, it's a comp that was more likely to scale. It's not something that's as early game focused that came out of 100 Thieves Next, and it worked really, really well. It wasn't just stomping an early game, it wasn't just snowballing an early game, it was playing off of Team Pending and really exploiting a lot of the choices that they made throughout that game. And I was saying during the broadcast that I think that bodes well coming into Proving Grounds. We need to see more styles of play from 100 Thieves Next, and they are experimenting.
They've done a very good job, I feel like, at showing that they can play these scaling aspects, and B, that they can withstand their early game. They don't necessarily have to throw down in the early stages to find those leads. It wasn't necessarily a question mark we had about them, but it was good to see them diversify the profile, build out a little bit of something different, and say, hey, you know what? We're not just this 1-2 trick team that can only play a certain style. We've got a plethora of options open to us.
And it was on full display. It was on full display from 100 Thieves Next. The individual skill is absolutely tremendous coming from them. I know our desk is just dying, just itching to hype up this team a little bit more, so we're going to throw over to them. Travi, take it away.